Hello, friends. Welcome to another episode of The Wizard Factory. Today's episode will be episode 8, called Empowered, Inspire, and Encourage. And we wanted to sort of do a special episode to sort of unpack one of our kind of main taglines, if you will. You've probably seen this in some of the posts on Facebook or being said at the end of our episodes, and it's something that Bryan and I kind of came up with collectively that really just encapsulates in a very short but symbolic and deep way, very profound way, what we really are aiming to accomplish with the Wizard Factory. So essentially, you may or may not have heard of a concept called the Trivium, or as it correlates to the Trinity, which is very, is found in many different religious and spiritual traditions worldwide. And essentially, what it can be broken down to in simple terms is you have knowledge, understanding, and then the wisdom, which is applying that knowledge. So essentially, empower, inspire, encourage correlate to those three stages. Empowered means to have the knowledge, because we've all heard knowledge is power. Inspired, because you can see that the word spirit is in that word, inspirited, inspired. And that's sort of that feminine passion aspect that is essential. You can't just have the knowledge alone if you don't care about it. And so those two combined and then put into action with the element of courage as well, because you can also care and know, but if you don't have the courage to act, you're going to stay frozen in fear, and therefore just as inert and helpless as if you didn't have the knowledge or the care at all to begin with. So that is an introduction, just kind of an overview. Bryan, would you like to riff on anything I said? Or
I think you did a really great job of the introduction of it. And I think it'd be good to look at and look at each one of these and break them down here. Where to be empowered, first off, we can look at it's obviously the foundation in the correlation to the Trivium, and that we have to first start with a place where we're coming from, a place of empowerment. So coming from the mindset of the spiritual warrior rather than a victimhood mindset. And when we step into that place of empowerment right from the very beginning, taking it back to the principle of mentalism, when we're empowered and actively seeking knowledge to raise our awareness, that sets us up for a lot more progress that we can make as we work through, and then we can come to the place of really learning to be inspired, like really to have that care and to experience that woe, as we like to talk about, that fury of self-awareness, where it is just the passion and the drive for the knowledge that you're gaining and the experience that you're having that you can come into. And obviously, encourage, to be encouraged, and to actually be able to enact your will and take action towards what you need to achieve. That's obviously the final step that has to happen in order for anything of that came previous to it to actually be of use. You have to actually take everything, put it into action. But no, I think that's a good little introduction into that. And then I hit on it there a little bit, but I guess we could talk about what is the mindset of the spiritual warrior. And this is something, I'm sure people have heard us talk about before. But, in the Norse tradition, obviously, there's the understanding that those who die in battle will go to Valhalla. And I think there's a general misunderstanding, where people think that's only dying in physical battle. But I think a lot more of the esoteric side of it is that dying in battle is being willing to face that ego death, that you're willing to sacrifice yourself unto yourself, just like Odin did, when he sacrificed his eye in the well of Mimir, or he hung himself on the Yggdrasil, and he gained the knowledge of the runes, which it's through that he gained his self-mastery and became Woden. So being willing to sacrifice yourself unto yourself, your lower self for your higher self, and come to that awareness. Because every time you're admitting you're wrong in a really serious way, and you're totally ripping apart your world and rebuilding your image, it feels like dying in battle. A lot of times, more so, that ego death can even be more intense for some people than actual physical death, where we can see, a lot of times if people, they suppress this and then they never want to face their issues, and they keep suppressing it to the point that they, from the shamanic perspective, actually manifest disease that will actually kill them because they've come so stagnant. So being willing to die in battle is being willing to constantly face that death in every moment. But those who live like that, they live in Valhalla. And I think that's a very interesting thing to look at. And there's a lot more we could break down with it too, if we really wanted.
I want to expand on, you could almost look at it like, what you're going into battle with. When you say the words dying unto yourself, or sacrificing yourself to yourself, that can sound a little bit cryptic and confusing to some people perhaps, but what it really is, when you think about it, is the false self that your ego has identified with it, the constructs of your identity that you think that you are, or that you've been programmed to think you are, or told to think that you are, and actually you aren't. That's the parts of yourself that are dying at your own hand. You're looking into that mirror fearlessly to see who you truly are, and to recognize who you are not, and put the sword to those concepts and put them to death and rid yourself of them and cleanse and purge and move past that. That's what it means to enter Valhalla, and it's glorious. That's where the true glory of battle is, not fighting overseas for some sick fucks and their greedy agendas. Is the glory of battle of becoming your truest self and living fearlessly and looking, the death of your false self directly in the eye.
No, I think that's definitely very well said there. And we can see in the mythos too, in Valhalla, it says, the warriors, that they're battling each other, and at the end of the day, they kind of feast and drink together. And that seems like a very strange concept, especially to like Westerners and things like that, but if you were to think about it, them slicing off each other's limbs and battling during the day, you could actually see that as warriors who are, in a metaphorical sense, slicing off each other's limbs, each other's illusions. They're helping each other battle, like in consciousness, and to actually help each other, better themselves, come to a higher awareness. And then at the end of the day, when they're done with that, obviously they feast together because they're doing that as brothers. So having that mindset that it's okay to have, to I guess in the sense of battle, to have other warriors help you challenge yourself. And that may include having to slice off some of your illusions that you may hold, feel are part of yourself.
Yeah, man. And what's so very beautiful about this allegory is, if you think about it, the things that divide us as brothers, as men, are the illusions. When the illusions are removed, we realize that you are me and I am you, and we are just love, all interconnected in the all. And so by slicing each other's limbs off, we're actually able to love each other more closely, because we've removed those barriers between you and I, and realized we're not enemies at all.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's very, very well said. Very well said. And then I think we could also look at kind of the flip side of this, of what I think you summed it up really well, calling it the unholy Trinity.
Yeah.
Would you like
and that's
to
a
delve into
concept
that?
Yeah, that's a concept that anyone who studies esoteric, masonry, Freemasonry, those are the three uh, tools that were used to put Hiram Abiff to death.
Hmm.
Is ignorance, apathy, and cowardice or sloth. Those two kind of, both work in tandem because, it's like you can care but not have the balls to do anything about it, or you could have the courage but you don't care enough to take action as well. Um, and those are essentially the death of consciousness. You know, those are the true enemies
Hmm.
of any human being. And it's ironic when you look at it that way, we actually all have the same enemy, and it's not you or I or each other. It's ignorance, apathy, and cowardice. Because the irony of the satanic mindset, where everyone's trying to compete as if there's only one slot for first place, when essentially we can all win. There, success and you know prosperity is not a scarcity. It's not a commodity that is measurable. Everyone has access to it. So cutting each other down for something, you know to get more of it yourself is actually completely, it's madness. It makes no sense. It's not based in reality because it's not a finite resource. We can all win, and in fact, we're all trying to get to the same place. And how much easier would this? Life's hard enough, right? We could actually cooperate and help each other all get to the finish line.
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely good to look at too. And when we tie this back with the Trivium process, seeing that obviously how it can start with ignorance, we can look and see that, and this could work both ways, but that how fear and ignorance are really the foundation of the system. They're the
Mm,
foundation of the mind control because sometimes people are afraid of certain things because they're ignorant of them.
mm,
They're not educated on them. They don't know what they're talking about, so then they're afraid of something. But then a
right.
lot of times people will choose to remain ignorant because they are afraid. So it can kind of play both ways with that. But I think it's very interesting that they're both states of being disempowered. Because when you're ignorant, you don't have knowledge. We've all heard the phrase "knowledge is power." Well, lack of knowledge is lack of power. Um, and
Absolutely.
obviously, if you're stuck in a fear-based mindset or a victimhood mindset, you're not going to have the power to actually ever want to be able to take action towards the things that you need to actually achieve what you want. So I think it's very interesting to look at how those become, that foundation on which things are built, and then apathy obviously being um, the opposite of the true care. It's just not caring at all. So if you don't have the knowledge, if you're totally ignorant and you're afraid, and then you just don't care, of course you're never actually going to get to that step where you take the action. So then you
Right.
see it's a continuation that continues through cowardice or laziness. Um,
Right. And you
yeah,
see that a lot in our culture. All these people saying like, "Oh, don't give a fuck." Like it's such just this cliche of just like not
yeah,
caring about anything, and you know, Bud Light up for whatever. It's just like, "Oh, whatever. I don't care. Whatever. Drink beer. Don't care." It's made to be cool. Like it's cool to not care in like mainstream society. Zero fucks given. It's all there. Like you hear this stuff all the time. And I mean, it is a balance because sometimes people care too much about things that they shouldn't. When they're stuck in their left brain, they're overly analyzing and micromanaging people's perceptions of them. And in that way, it's good to not give a fuck. But you see that kind of gets very imbalanced, in that way.
mhm,
But in my own personal experience, it was actually the acquisition and integration of knowledge that raised my consciousness that actually generated the care. Because it's kind of like, take just an easy example like diet, right? Most people are pretty ignorant of diet, and therefore they don't care to clean up their diet. But then if you start telling them about all the poisons and the chemicals and the hormones and all this crap that's in the food, if they actually acknowledge that and understand that that's factual, then they'll start to care a little bit more, because they're like, oh wow, like now I can't just ignore this anymore, and now I have to care. So, and that has genuinely been true in my experience all the way around. Even like things like, I was actually concerned at my connection to animals. Like my cousin was super, super like all about animals, and I was more interested in video games and stuff like that. And I found that the more spiritual I became, not only were animals more like receptive and connective to me, but I found an affinity and more of a care for them as well. So it's just little things like that. Like, I think the knowledge kind of helps bring about the care, because it's easy to care when you're just ignorancing things, but once it's really hard to keep yourself cut off from that care, because the more you know, to realize how connected to everything we are. And then when you see how connected, it's hard to not care, because you realize you're just as much a part of everything else.
Right. I think that's a great point. And what it really leads in well to the other thing we wanted to hit on, which was the responsibility. Because that's what it is doing. You're becoming aware of the knowledge, and then that responsibility comes to where you actually then have to, okay, so I'm aware of this pattern, I'm aware of whatever's going on. Now I have to choose to either continue to stay in ignorance and not, be apathetic and the coward and not do anything about it, or actually, go about it in the correct way, which is to inform yourself where you have the knowledge, you have the proper understanding, and then you know how to take proper action towards that in alignment with cosmic law.
Right. So that responsibility has to be directly related to that third component of action and application, because you just can't have the knowledge and care and not feel that energetic drive pushing you to action. It's like, if you care, if you're in your empathy and then you see injustice happening, you feel anger. And what does anger make you do? It makes you want to take action, like to stop what's happening, or to create change. So yeah, that responsibility definitely has to come about through the knowledge and the care. And see, it's funny how I was just thinking, like, how it works backwards. Like, you do have to care to some degree in order to take the knowledge in as well. They do play to each other. But I think ultimately, because we are interacting with the universe, and because of natural law and consequences that are in place, your ignorance is going to lead inevitably to chaos and suffering, which is going to make you care. Like, the more you continue to beat your head on the rocks, the less you really can get away with, I don't care. Well, you better start caring, because at the end of the day, nobody wants chaos, really. You know what I mean? Good is objective. It's what's good. It's what's in harmony with nature and love and balance and all the things. And people who think that they want chaos, that's not their authentic self. That desire for chaos is a manifestation or a symptom of their sickness, and nobody wants to be sick. It's like saying, you want to have cancer or something like that,
Right. No, absolutely. I think that's a very, very good metaphor for that, for sure. But see, I think that's pretty much what I had for the most part on. Like I said, on this episode is going to be a little bit doing this one a little bit shorter here than what we typically do, but we wanted to get this tagline kind of introduced it out there so people can really understand and dig into what we're really saying when we say this. Um, yeah. So, was there anything else that you had to add, Logan? My little guy.
Oh, I thought that was a cat. That's
No,
hilarious.
that's my son. He's fighting bedtime.
Yeah. All right. No, I think that's pretty much all I have on this. I mean, that's it's a pretty straightforward, nice, neat little package. Fairly simple concept on the surface, but Bryan, like you talk about the complicated simplicity, it's very
Yeah,
simple in theory, but you could take this one concept and sit there and just think about it, and there's layers upon layers of depth, if you're really trying to dig into it. So, I mean, again, this is why we chose this as a central, concept to really focus and deliver, like, sort of our mission statement as the Wizard Factory, because ultimately we want to empower, inspire, encourage others, to share this path with us, so that, like I said earlier, we can all cross the finish line together, as brothers and sisters in the human family. So,
absolutely. Yeah, no, that's what it's all about. It's all about is, empowering the self and then, taking that and helping others do the same.
and that's sort of the true lesson here, I think, is that it never everything that we're taught and conditioned and programmed is so backwards and just so not right. Not right is in, like, solely a moral term, but the reason those correlate is because it's also incorrect. There
Hmm.
is a better way. To think, to adopt the satanic mindset where you're just going to step on everybody to get yourself ahead, you're never going to really get ahead, because even if you get all the money, and I mean, look at statistically the depression and the, pharmaceutical antidepressants among wealthy people, they think that they thought they would have it all by getting the job, getting the money, all this and that, but ultimately, because they're not in alignment with their true self and their true path, it's not fulfilling to them. Whereas if we all help each other, not only is it helping us, but helping everyone else as well. So, it's both selfish and selfless, because by helping you, I'm helping myself. We all win. That's what I'm trying to say. So,
Hmm.
by giving away everything you desire and trusting that Gabo energy, everything is going to come back to you tenfold, and we all can live in that abundance.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I think that's going to wrap up this short little kind of mini episode. But, really think about these concepts. Like I said, very, very simple on the surface, but you could really dive into this stuff, really. So, I guess, until next week, thank you for watching, and be empowered, inspired, and encouraged. Thank you.